morning and welcome back to blackdoctor.org. I am your host, Ask Dr. Renee. And today we are celebrating World AIDS Day. So technically, if you read the post, World AIDS Day was yesterday, but you know my show's on Thursday. So today we are celebrating. So we have the wonderful pleasure of having someone who has been on Black Doctor millions of times, Imara Canady, who works with the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. And he also just came back from LA. They had a huge celebration for World AIDS Day last night at the Forum. So he'll tell us about that as well. But today we are really trying to talk about where we are now as far as the AIDS epidemic. You know, there was a whole lot of speculation about, oh, they quickly found, vaccines for COVID. What about AIDS? We'll talk about the difference between the two and why there is what there is and all of the advancements there have been with AIDS and HIV. So thank you, Mr. Canady, for joining us this lovely evening.
It's always great to be with you, Dr. Renee. I really appreciate it, and would be remiss to not say just to the blackdoctor.org family, thank you for always just being a conduit of giving impactful information and education that our community desperately needs. So thank you. It's good to be here.
So, one second, I just noticed something. So one thing I have to say, because I am queen of forgetting to say it, is that you guys have to please subscribe. Click the link, click the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching us on Facebook, make sure that you've liked our page. And please share this out to people. Share, because this is important information that I promise you might know, but somebody you know doesn't know. So let's start off with, where are we now in the Black community as far as our numbers with HIV and AIDS?
Well, Dr. Renee, we're in an interesting place because I think it's important to kind of put things into perspective. Because if we don't put things into perspective, particularly for Black Americans, we could really be in a mental space of where we really were in the early 80s and early 90s, when literally HIV that then moved into AIDS was a death sentence. We have really advanced in a lot of ways. Thank God for the advancements in science and technology, science and medicine, that now HIV is a critical illness. So that's the good news, if you will. The news that really we need to be looking at more clearly as a Black community is that the face of HIV and AIDS has shifted dramatically. At one time, it literally could have been called a white gay male's disease. And now the face of HIV and AIDS are individuals that look like you and me. And not only Black Americans, but let's peel back the layers even more, young people and our seniors. We are seeing new HIV diagnoses happening in young people from 11 years old to 24-year-olds. And then going on the bookend of that, of our seniors. So it says that we've got some work to do. We have made some tremendous advancements, and I do think we need to honor that and celebrate that and know that we are moving in the right direction. But we as a community, I don't like to say that we need to own the HIV epidemic, but we need to be living in our reality that HIV and AIDS is disproportionately impacting Black and brown folks. And what are we going to do as a community, as one united community, to shift the trajectory of where we can be in the future?
Exactly. So what I told everyone that said, well, what about HIV and AIDS? HIV and AIDS are not a public health issue as much as COVID, because it's not passing through the air, everyone. COVID, in case you guys didn't know, is passed through respiratory droplets that come out when you're running down the street, when you are speaking, when you are breathing. And so, in case you don't know, you do need your respiratory system to live. So that is why that's why COVID is very vastly different from HIV and AIDS, because HIV, yes, it's a virus, but it's just not a virus that is passed so easily. We know that you can get it from blood, from blood. So obviously Arthur Ashe unfortunately died because he had received a blood transfusion from contaminated blood. We also know that you can get it from bodily fluids, which is why we all say wear condoms, know your status. So that is where there's the huge difference between coronavirus
Right.
and
Yeah.
human immunodeficiency virus. So
Yeah.
that's where there's a huge difference. But you and I both know they have had some huge progress when it comes to HIV and AIDS. And now we know that there's these lovely drugs on the market that can help people to not pass AIDS on to their partners.
Hmm. And I want to say something because I don't ever like to assume, particularly in the Black community, that folks know this. So there is HIV and there is AIDS.
Right,
And
right.
we kind of unilaterally use the terminology AIDS often, but AIDS, and there's no such thing as full-blown AIDS too. So let's that it's either you're HIV positive or you're living with AIDS.
Kind of not a little bit pregnant.
That's exactly right. Um, so the interesting part is that we at HF like to share with folks that there really is what we call your toolkit around prevention. One, going from one spectrum is abstinence, and that might be what's right for you. Another is, a part of the toolkit is condom usage. Condom usage really is one of the most effective ways of prevention of transmission of HIV and other STDs. Because I know we're focusing on HIV, but you can't. It's almost like it's almost like you can't talk about the cake without talking about the icing, if you will. And so it's important that when you're thinking about prevention, you not just think about the lens of, well, what am I doing to prevent HIV, but what am I doing to prevent, sexually transmitted infections and diseases across the board. And then, of course, there is, which is a great advancement, particularly looking at the lens of HIV prevention, which is called PrEP, which is essentially, and I want to really stress this, is that it is a daily one pill a day regimen that if someone is on PrEP, that is a lifetime commitment. So there's a lot of confusion and there's been a lot of sometimes miseducation. They're like, oh, I'm sexually active right now, I can take PrEP. Oh, I'm not sexually active right now, I'm going to go off PrEP. It doesn't work that way. And I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent, but why I share that is the most critical thing, and I really do think this is critical. It is not for me as an individual, non-medical professional, to be telling someone that they need to be on PrEP. It is
Correct.
definitely something that is an invaluable part of the toolkit. No, we're talking about the toolkit, but it is important that any medical decision that you make, whether it's around sexual prevention or what have you, that you are in consultation with a healthcare provider. And I would encourage you that it be your primary care physician or someone that is looking at the totality of your health and wellness. Because these are drugs. These are medications. These are not natural herbs coming from the earth. And so that you want to make that if you're making a decision to be on any medication, whether it's PrEP, whether it's HIV medication, whether it's
Blood
Tylenol.
pressure medicine.
Exactly. You want to make sure that you are in constant communication with a trusted medical professional that's saying, okay, well, you're on this, so we need to do this to make sure that they complement each other and don't kind of X out each other or create other side effects that you don't want to deal with. So yes, so going back to it, there is this toolkit, what we call the prevention toolkit. Abstinence is a part of it, condom usage, which we highly encourage. And then, of course, really being in consultation with your doctor and healthcare professional around the use of PrEP.
Yes, definitely. You always want to make sure you talk to your doctor because drugs sometimes don't interact well and can cause something else not to work the way it's supposed
Exactly.
to. And you don't want anything to happen to you because you're trying to be safe.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the wonderful thing is, to me, it's almost like we got to, it's an interesting thing because I've been with AIDS Healthcare Foundation for 7 years, and so it's always been interesting to me that you almost have to go a step or two back in the conversation. Because if I start with just talking about, sexual health and wellness and looking at prevention, and we're not talking about holistically, how are we taking care of our bodies, this temple. And we really do need to be thinking about it as a temple. Whether we can do a whole show just talking about, and I know you've done some tremendous things around this, Dr. Renee, of just looking, what are we eating? What are we putting into the body? Are we nourishing the body? I had this wonderful chiropractor. I'm a huge proponent of chiropractic. And one of the things he said to me, which was like bing, 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 is she said, Imara, you need to think about it like this. Water is to the body that gasoline is to a car.
Mm-hmm.
So if we start there, so I know it's like I'm kind of going into exactly. But I say that because if you're not in a space and a place that you are looking at health and wellness in its totality, then it can sometimes be a challenge to say, okay, we need to be getting you on a healthy regimen around HIV. I also want to say is that we got to honor the fact when we talk about where we've been and where we're at, that there was a time that people really were collectively the community was deeply challenged with living with HIV. And now we really have a population of individuals that are thriving with living with HIV. So I'm not saying a big proponent like don't take the necessary precautions to be safe in your intimacy, but you also recognize that as we really also talk about normalizing the conversation around health and wellness and sexual health and wellness, is that we really push that message is that HIV and AIDS are not a death sentence. They are not. They are a critical illness. It is not something to be ashamed of. It does not define who you are. It is a critical illness, and it is a critical illness that, if managed in some cases with one pill a day regimen, people are living healthy and fruitful lives and healthy and fruitful sexually active lives without transmitting the virus to their sexual partners.
Right. And then also, as far as women transmitting to your children, even so.
Exactly.
So these things are very important. But I also want to go back to what he said. HIV is human immunocompromised virus, immunodeficiency virus. That is the virus. AIDS is a syndrome of the virus. Because you're HIV positive does not mean that you have AIDS.
Exactly.
So you just need to know that that AIDS is a syndrome, you could call disease, I guess, of HIV. So that's just so you understand. So HIV is a virus, just like coronavirus is a virus. It's just they're two very vastly different viruses.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So tell us about the event you guys had yesterday.
Oh my gosh. Ooh, you can feel my energy is a little sluggish because I literally just got back off a plane about an hour ago. It was amazing. I mean, one of the things that we do at AHF, and I know that we've been on several times, but also, because I know that there's people watching from not only all across the country, but all across the globe, is to give just a kind of a snapshot. So AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which is celebrating its 35th anniversary in 2022, has really been in the forefront of the fight against HIV and AIDS. We started the organization, it was co-founded by Michael Weinstein, who is still currently our president, really as a group of friends that were living in the Los Angeles community and wanted to create shelter for their friends and colleagues who they saw dying on a daily basis from what we now know to be AIDS in undignified, unloving environments. So we actually started as the AIDS Hospice Foundation. And it was about providing a place where individuals that were in their final days of living with AIDS, that they could be in a loving, supportive, dignified environment.
Which that's what hospice is. So, if you heard
Yes.
the word hospice
Yes.
around a loved one, it is so that they can die, hopefully, in not a lot of pain,
Yes.
but with dignity. So, if that is brought up, please don't. I should do a show about that as well. But you should not, fear hospice. It's just
Exactly.
so that you can comfortably make your transition.
Yes. And then fast forward through the advancements of medicine and science, when there was prevention mechanisms for HIV and how to manage those living with HIV, then we recognized that the focus of the organization needed to be around prevention, treatment, and care. And then that's when we became the AIDS Healthcare Foundation and have grown to now where we are the world's largest nonprofit public health organization with a primary focus on addressing HIV and AIDS. We are in 45 countries across the globe, and here throughout the United States are in 16 states domestically. We have over 1.6 million individuals in care, looking at our collective footprint. And our mission and motto is really simple and it's so powerful. It's to provide cutting edge medical care and advocacy regardless of one's ability to pay. And what that really means is if someone tests positive today at any of our testing locations or our testing activities out in the community across the globe, first we make a commitment to get you linked to care, meaning linked and connected to your first medical appointment in no more than 72 hours. And if we get you linked to that care and find that you don't have the proper insurance or the financing to ensure that you can stay in care, and not just care, but the quality care that all human beings deserve, we don't let that be a barrier to ensuring that you stay in care. And that's our commitment across the globe. The other component, our arm, which is a critical arm of our organization, is we're a very vocal advocacy organization. We really, we term ourselves the righteous rebels, if you will. So it's really addressing issues that we know are issues that are social justice issues of this time, and are in many cases are social determinants that impact how folks are continuing to be affected and infected by HIV and AIDS. So it's any number of things that we have addressed. And some folks say, well, why are you all doing this? Or, but we know that if someone can't have housing, much less quality, affordable housing, then again, talking about sexual health and wellness or maintaining a viable, healthy lifestyle is going to be out the door, if you will. So we've done a lot of advocacy work around the homeless issue. We've done a lot of advocacy work around gentrification, around high drug pricing, around access to Medicare and Medicaid. So all of these myriad of things, and that's on one spectrum. But then we've also, particularly over these last few years, when we've seen a lot of uprise around racial injustice, we launched a campaign called Stand Against Hate that was really about bringing to the forefront and having spaces to really address the issues of hate and moving us to a different conversation around how we come together as one community and what that looks like. And we know that, again, if someone feels less than and someone is treated less than, it again has a direct correlation to taking care of oneself and one's body and so forth. So that is who AHF is and who we will continue to be in the community. And until we like to say, until we are forced to close our doors because we have addressed the HIV and AIDS epidemic, and hopefully that may be in our lifetime. There's a lot of advancements that are happening, but there's still a lot of work to do. And then we can't just kind of put it on the shelf and say, well, that's for the CDC to do. It starts at home. It starts with self. It starts in our community. And I know we're going to talk about this some, Dr. Renee, but I think particularly when we look at the Black community, we really got to kind of, go back to home, if you will. Where do we go to get that empowerment? And historically, there's been spaces of empowerment like Black faith institutions, like our civic and professional organizations, whether it's our fraternities and sororities or civic groups, like sitting around the dinner table as a family. So we got to kind of get to the core of what we know and have real conversations, non-judgmental conversations, and creating safe spaces in all of these spaces that I can come as who I am and still be loved, embraced, and supported, no matter what I may bring to the table in the totality of who I am. It really boils down to the essence of it. And I should have wore that t-shirt is, I am my brother's keeper. You are, and I am your sister's keeper, and that there is, if you think about it, when you talk about community, the end of community is unity. And how are we working together to continue to believe and build that beloved community that Dr. King talked about? And a part of that beloved community was the alleviation of stigma and judgment of, our brothers and sisters.
Yes, definitely. So, we saw this with COVID even, and we're still seeing this. We're trying to figure out, where do people listen to, information and believe the information. And like you said, it is the faith-based community, and it is, urban leagues and, NAACPs, and like you said, sororities and fraternities. All of those places are places where we get the right information and hopefully disseminate it out into the community, so that we all have the information. I think that a lot of people, like you said, stigma is one of the things. And then the other thing is, some people I think still do believe that Magic Johnson, because of money, is the reason why he's lived so long, but it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, at all.
It-
He's taking the
at
same
all.
medication. I'm in one of our clinics now. He's on the same medication that someone in one of our clinics upstairs is also taking.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really important for you to understand that you should know your status. There is way, and Amar will share with us, there's ways to get free testing. There's ways to get tested at home. There's just so many, there's no
Yes,
barriers anymore.
that's right.
So you should know your status. And then if you find out, I mean, look, even if you have insurance, sometimes it's hard to get to a doctor within 72
Right.
hours.
Yeah,
So
exactly right. Right.
if that is their promise, I'm telling you, you should probably get hold of AHF.
Yeah, yeah. And it's true what you said. Dr. Ray, I tell folks all the time, like, I'm a Libra, so we're very much, oh, I'm in love and I love to love, but there's really nothing more beautiful, and I think more powerful and truly more intimate than a couple, whatever the makeup of that couple is, going to get tested together and having real conversations around your sexual appetite, having real conversations around kind of your sexual history, because there's nothing to be ashamed about. And if I love you, I need to know all of who you are so I can make the decision that I can love and embrace all of who you are and vice versa. And I think the other part of it is that, is to not be ashamed. Because I think, again, it goes back to HIV does not define who you are.
Mm-mm.
It is just another issue within all of the things that we may be addressing in our own personal lives and in our collective relationships that we just say, okay, what are we going to do about this now? Let's talk about that. But I would say to everyone who is in a committed relationship, everyone who is exploring a committed relationship, is just like it's important to know the finances, just like it's important to know the family history and connect with the family, just like it's important to know the values and dreams and visions, it is just as important to know each other's status. And again, knowing that now there's just been this amazing advancement in medicine and science, that if either individual is positive with HIV, ensuring that they are on their regimen, like I said, in most cases, it's one pill a day, and knowing that if we can keep you on your regimen of one pill a day, then the goal is, and it happens in most cases, that you stay what's called undetectable, meaning that your the virus load is so low and controlled that it's not undetectable in your body. Now you are still living with HIV, but undetectable means that it is non-transmittable in sexual activity, and that is the goal. But that starts with knowing your status and getting tested, staying in care, getting in care and staying in care. Doing your daily regimen of your one pill a day, and living a fruitful life. I mean, I have a dear friend who's like well in his 70s and has been living with HIV and really thriving with HIV. And he was diagnosed probably, I mean, maybe 30 so years ago, maybe 40 years ago now. And he's living his life like it's golden. My mother has a dear friend who was one of her colleagues who is living with HIV and is living with HIV. And, she shared her status with my mom in the context of telling her the excitement about that she was getting married. So, there's all these wonderful stories that we oftentimes don't hear about. And so that's what I say, but it starts with that empowerment, emboldening ourselves and emboldening our brothers and sisters in our community it's that self-love.
Mm-hmm.
It really is about that self-love and just knowing HIV, critical illness. HIV, it's manageable. HIV doesn't define you.
Definitely. So I just had a thought that popped into my head. Didn't I see you on one of these reality shows recently?
It was my twin. Uh,
So you guys, AHF, I'm telling you, they do the most. So last night was Christina Aguilera and Jennifer Hudson, and they honored Bernie Sanders. But recently they did a concert in Miami. And of course, if you're in Miami, you have to have Trina. And so, what reality show was that?
Yeah, so we do an annual, it's called the Florida AIDS Walk. I mean, it's actually in Fort Lauderdale, so just up the way.
Oh, okay.
But it's, say, you still got to have Trina,
Right.
and it's great. We've been doing it, I forgot for how many years now. We've now grown to where we raised over $2 million that then goes to benefit 10 HIV/AIDS service organizations in the local community. And that's our other commitment is, when we do this work, whether it's fundraising for different causes or whatnot, it's about keeping it in the local community. And part of it is what I love. It goes back to that whole term of cutting edge. Is that one of the things I think AHF is really brilliant at is meeting people where they're at, connecting with people in ways that they can that they can deeply connect with. And I am a huge lover of art and culture, so we have found that really bringing in the creative and cultural and performing arts has really been a great way to connect with people, particularly targeted communities. And when you filter back even more, looking at the exciting world of hip hop and live music. So we have really incorporated, like you said, Jennifer Hudson and Christina Aguilera last night in LA at the Forum, and it was Trina and Little Kim. So we were on the beach having a great time, and when it was Love and Hip Hop Miami, which of course Trina is a regular on, when they heard about it, they called us and said, "Hey, we have an idea that we think would really be great to, kind of educate and empower, their viewership," which was a great opportunity because their viewership is a huge target population of who we know is directly impacted by HIV. So, they did it, they talked to, Trina, and as a part of it was, so the segment that you saw was the segment of thanking Trina, kind of telling her the big picture of what's happening, particularly in South Florida around HIV and AIDS, and the impact that her performance has had on young people and her fans. Because it was true, when we announced that Trina was going to be on the bill with Lil Kim, it was like, oh yeah, I'm there, I'm there, I don't know what it's about, I'm there. So it just is another example. Last night, we were in a 17,000 seat arena, and it was about how do you bring the message to where people are at and connecting with them in ways that they can hear it, digest it, receive it, and hopefully share it, empowering their own lives and that of others while having a good time. It really is, it is the epitome of a party with a purpose.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And like you said, you have to meet people where they're at. Like we just said, some people will listen to the faith-based community, other people will listen to Trina.
Yeah, exactly, and everything in between. And
Right.
there's room in the if we're gonna keep it on the toolbox, there's room in the awareness toolbox for everything.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm not the most socially media savvy, but I mean, we've done a lot of great things. Great. God bless the millennials. They can be crazy sometimes, but God bless them too in terms of just the innovation that they bring. And like, we need to be doing this. I mean, so we've got this myriad of ways of really connecting with people, connecting with targeted communities, um, and having it resonate with folks. Because at the end of the day, I think one of the most powerful things when you know that you've made a difference is, one, obviously, if somebody knows, gets tested, knows their status. But also, it could be as simple as Dr. Renee, they're in that moment of intimacy and they say, oh, let me get a condom, or just any myriad of things. So I love it. I mean, I think it's just, you can't, you know, my mom and daddy always said the definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect different results. So, and that's one thing that HF has really done an extraordinary job of. And I would be remiss to not even talk about, even to recognizing that we are, where we are all the same is that we are all part of humanity. But culturally, there's vast differences in our cultural experiences, our cultural understandings, our cultural connections. And so AHF, the last few years, launched these culturally relevant, culturally sensitive, culturally for us, by us initiatives that deepened and deeply connected the work in culturally sensitive and relevant ways to key communities. So you see me wearing the t-shirt and hat black, which is our Black Leadership AIDS Crisis Coalition, which initially started as the HF Black AIDS Crisis Task Force, about 7 or 8, well, no, God, about 8 or 9 years ago now, and has really grown to where it is the coalition of Black leaders. And when I'm talking about leaders, I'm not just talking about the Jesse Jacksons of the world, but I'm talking about the Dr. Renees. I'm talking about, the community grassroots neighborhood organizer, but this cross section of leaders across our country that have really come together to work in tandem with HF around creating culturally relevant and culturally sensitive ways of doing this work that more deeply connect with the Black community. So there's work that we're doing in the Black churches, there's in the other Black faith institutions. We've built out some wonderful partnerships with our fraternities and sororities. About a year or two ago, launched a national partnership with Alpha Phi Alpha, in conversations and finalizing a national partnership with Omega Psi Phi. We've done a lot of things with the Deltas. We've done a lot of things with Jack and Jill, the Links. These traditional places where we know our community gathers to be empowered and educated. We've done a lot of stuff also around impacting young gay Black men, around our children. And I love the stuff we've been doing. And we're doing a lot of things with film and cinematography and technology with our young people, and they're all in it. And let me tell you, to the parents and caregivers, if you think that your children, and I'm talking 9, 10, and 11 on up, are not engaging in some level of sexuality or exploration, they are. You should just assume that in some degree. I mean, maybe not, I'm not saying across the board, but it's very likely. And equally as challenging is that they're having conversations and getting information in places and spaces where it may not be, and is more than likely not accurate. So that's why it's important to have these conversations in your home and not giving them fear tactics. One of the things that I have a niece and I'm about to say 4 grandsons, for Lord Jesus, 4 nephews, but I also have a myriad of godchildren. And I never, 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 my niece at the time, this has been a few years ago, when you're 15, 16, we're all googly eyed, we see somebody that we love, I'm in love, I'm in love. And I think one of the worst things that we as more seasoned individuals can do is act like we didn't go through that same experience.
Right.
Because then it creates the barrier for our young people to feel safe, and feel invited to come talk to those they love about these natural experiences that they're having. And one of the things I said, we talked about is, let's talk about what is love. What how do you say, oh, I'm all in love with this person, but I like this person, And what is the myriads of types of ways that love expresses itself, and just had real conversations. Then we had real conversations. I was like, just talking about just the whole kind of like that tingly feeling when you just with that person that you just think, oh, they just mean the world to me. But I say all that, and I kind of be joking about it, but I think it's imperative that we really do have real conversations with our young people and normalize it and connect them to say, yeah, when I was 14, 15, 16, yeah, that was going on too. So that they can then, be empowered education and hopefully make safe choices. And, and also it may not be you. So you, the parent, may not be the messenger, if you will. And that's one thing I was clear about. I didn't assume that my sister did or did not have a conversation with her children about it. I said, I equally have a role in their development, and I can't be out here talking about this to everybody else and not bring it home. So that's one. So we've done a lot of stuff around children and young people. We've a lot of stuff around women, because the unfortunate reality, Dr. Renee, and and we've got to change this trajectory of when we start talking about sexual health and wellness. Often than more, women are left out of the conversation, and the impact of how, whether it's HIV, other sexually transmitted infections, or just sexual health and wellness, they're left out of the equation. And I hate to break it to us, but one is, if you're not going to talk about sex, then you're doing a little disservice, because we all came into being through an end of sex. So that's one. Two is, if you're going to leave women out of the equation, and it's no disregard to our non-cisgendered female sisters, but the reality of it is that we all came through this existence through a woman. So you need to kind of keep them in the conversation a little bit. So we just know that that was an important focus group to really be doing work with. And we've done some amazing things with the National Council of Negro Women. As a matter of fact, we just did a collaboration for World AIDS Day on November 30th of a national broadcast. There was a really great conversation that encompassed all this. We had a leader from the HIV prevention division of the CDC, this fabulous pastor, Sister Reverend Natasha Reed Rice, uh, amazing cisgendered woman, Lydia Joyce, who many have seen on the Veritiv commercial talking about HIV and living with HIV. We had a wonderful sister, Dazon Dixon Dallow, who's founded at that time, who was the first reproductive justice and sexual health and wellness organization focused on women of color, Sister Love, based here in Atlanta, as well as Ingrid Floyd, who's the executive director for World, based in Oakland, California, as well as Iris House, based in Harlem, New York. Fabulous conversation. So we've done some great things with NCNW. So saying all these things is that, also HF has done these similar initiatives looking at the Hispanic and Latinx community. So there's a group we have called Loud. There's a group that we have called Flux that's focused on the transgender community. And there's a group that we have that just focuses on women called Spark. And these are all initiatives that are for us, by us. So for example, I'm not leading or involved with Spark because I'm not a woman, so that kind of thing. And it's not to say that I can't be an ally and a supporter of the work, but it's really coming from that. And I think that's a very powerful thing, to both look at it from the lens of how are we working within community in culturally relevant and powerful ways, but then also how are we working within community to see how we can collaborate and support each other.
That's awesome. You guys continue to please do this amazing work that is unfortunately still needed. And like you said, I really think that in our lifetimes, because who would ever thought, I knew someone that died many, 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 many years ago of AIDS, and they were on a cocktail, as they called them,
Yes.
of so many pills. It was just insane.
Yeah.
And so, so it's wonderful to hear now that you can just take one pill a day
Yeah.
and be fine. So who'd ever thought? And I'm sure if that person was still, they would never have thought we'd be here. Even Magic was on a cocktail in his beginning stages to where he is now. I'm sure is totally different. So I'm so grateful that things are changing, and they're getting new things. And PrEP is just, I mean, when I heard about PrEP a few years ago, I was like, what?
Yeah.
How? So that is just amazing as well. So now you guys know what they're talking about when they say PrEP in the commercials, because those commercials, they're not the best to me, because when I didn't know what PrEP was, I was slightly confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna need them to do a little bit more work on those commercials, because they were slightly confusing.
And my own personal opinion, sometimes that might be mildly intentional, because
this is true. So that they'll ask a question. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
So you go to the doctor.
Or folks who just get excited and say, "Oh my God, let me just go take it."
Right.
But again, nothing. Whether we're talking about PrEP, nothing should anybody be putting in their body from a medical prevention perspective without getting a real conversation from your medical professional, someone you trust. I'm not saying go to the little guru and say, but someone that you trust, to really help guide your medical decisions, and do your own research too. I mean, it can sometimes. I mean, now we're in this day and age where you can get so many.
Don't do the research, because Lord knows who.
You'll get very conflicting information.
Right.
But I think do enough research that you can even go into ask the relevant questions so that you can, collectively with your doctor or medical professional, make an informed educated decision that's right for you. So remember, Dr. Renee's decisions around her health and wellness are going to be different than what's right for me. It's going to be different from what's right for her sister, her mother, or her father. So it is about, I say the two folks you got to build an intimate relationship with is your pastor and your doctor.
I agree. Because I'm all about somebody who has Jesus on the main line.
Right, that's right. And if you like me, your shoe provider. So, but I'll say all seriousness. But It really is. I mean, I think I don't ever want people to, I have this opportunity of talking about this work, as do my colleagues oftentimes. And it's so critical to say, well, that man from AIDS Healthcare Foundation said, I need to go get on PrEP. No, what we're saying is it is an option in the toolkit, a very powerful option in the toolkit around HIV prevention. So let's be clear. So I would say, even if it is decided that you're going to be on PrEP, wrap it up. You still got to wear a condom because PrEP focuses on addressing HIV. It does not focus on syphilis. It does not focus on herpes. It does not focus on any
Gonorrhea, chlamydia.
chlamydia, exactly. And I mean, what most folks don't know is that we've had an upsurge, particularly in a lot of our urban communities, around syphilis. So that's why and I know it sounds like, it's like it can be overwhelming, but it's around education and awareness. And go if having sex is something that you are choosing to do, this is about making sexually informed decisions. And
Because some of these things, just like HIV, will be with you for the rest of your life.
For your rest of your
So
life.
it makes sense for you to understand and to
Yes.
prevent yourself from getting these things because herpes, I say to everyone, is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep, that's exactly right. And if you get one STI, it makes you vulnerable to get another STI, which gives which in essence makes you even more vulnerable to more easily and readily have the accessibility of contracting HIV.
Yes.
So
And
that's
of
why.
course, immunocompromise also opens you more to COVID as well,
Exactly.
which is, what everyone is dealing with now. So it's just best to please, like you said, the toolkit sounds amazing, and you really need to make sure you have your toolkit so that you can remain healthy. And yes, it's wonderful that a lot of people are living long, prosperous lives with
Yes.
HIV and AIDS, but you don't have to.
Yes. Yes.
This is preventable.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing that I would say to Dr. Renee is like, everybody's like, oh, because I've heard some folks like, well, it's weird to be putting on the condom and all that. Let me just say, I have been told by friends, like they come up with, there's all these creative ways of how you can still make it sexy and wrap on the condom. And if you are in a heterosexual relationship, sisters, don't rely that the brother is going to have a condom.
And ladies, there's a female condom, which is an episode we did on Black Doctor and talked about. So you can check that out as well. But there is a female condom so that you can be responsible for yourself.
Exactly.
And the female condom goes inside of you. So
yeah, exactly. Or make it sexy with ways that are helping the brother put on his condom and what have you.
And then they got the flavored ones and all these other fancy
so
stuff.
you could that's right, strawberry, coconut, pina colada. So you could whatever. The gamut is there for you. They probably light up and all that kind of stuff. So really, I mean, we're having fun with it, but it really is, the decision that you make in 30 seconds is a decision that can impact the rest of your life. And it's just that simple. And I know we can sometimes be all hot and heated in the moment, but you can still be hot and heated in the moment and making wise, educated decisions for prevention.
Right.
And still have a wonderful night, a wonderful day, or whenever you're opportunity, if you will, So, but it really is that it's that educational part first and normalizing the conversation. I love having sister groups, where you're having real conversations around sexual health and wellness. And brothers, we need to be doing the same thing.
At the barbershop.
Exactly. So that, a lot of times when we talking trash about how fine that sister is, that we need to be, kind of bringing it back home and saying, bruh, like I love Lamont Rucker, who's done a lot of work with us. That he used to just keep condoms with him, and when he was with his boys, be like, all right, bro, you got, he's like, yeah, I'm about to go see my girl or whatever. It's like, all right, man, here you go. And he's like, no questions, but like, bro, you just might need this, So it's just all those ways of how we support each other, how we keep the education and awareness going strong, and equally as important, how we normalize the conversation and reduce stigma. Stigma and judgment on a myriad of things is killing our community.
Exactly.
Literally. It is like, it's just that stigma and that judgment is festering within our community. We've got to get rid of that. So we need to, We need to stay out of folks' bedrooms. We really do.
I
If
totally
you want to
agree.
invite into the bedroom, don't be going out in the bedroom or the
Right.
kitchen or wherever,
Right.
wherever. But just having just real conversations and being supportive and loving and making sure that if someone doesn't have access to the information, that you are the conduit of that. So really, I am a firm believer that now all of the viewers that are watching this evening or whenever they may catch this show, that they now, your responsibility is now you are an ambassador of this information. And if you feel like you don't know enough, I encourage you to go. There's a website that we have called freehivtest.net, and it tells you more in very simplified ways about HIV and AIDS, but also more importantly, you put in your zip code no matter where you are in the country, and it will direct you to where you can go to receive a confidential, rapid, free HIV test near you. And again, some people say, well, I'm nervous. I want to, but again, if you test positive today, if it's one of our facilities, we make a commitment, or one of our community testing events, we make a commitment that we get you linked to that first appointment in no more than 72 hours. And then through our case managers and linkage providers and so forth, we have a process too, just to kind of stay with you, because we also understand that, you know, you go
There's
into the
fear of the
restaurant.
unknown.
Yeah, you go into the restaurant and you go get tested and then come find out you're HIV. That's not like oh, that it can be a little joggling, if you will. So we've got folks that kind of are there to kind of help you understand kind of, what this means, what the next step is and so forth. But at the end of the day, the next step is getting you into care so that you can have a wonderful, thriving, fruitful, and blessed life.
And on that note, thank you so much. This was fabulous. And as you see, I have it scrolling at the bottom, freehivtest.net. I will go back and make sure I put it in the posts on Facebook and on YouTube so that anyone who needs this information can click the link and get right to it. But thank you so much. And please continue that awesome work the HAHF is doing, because it is obviously making a huge impact. And it is so needed and so helpful. And we all do need to stop with the stigmas and, just be helpful.
Yeah.
If you encounter someone, be helpful and give them information that you received tonight or whatever, instead of, oh, well, you slept with that. No, that's not necessary.
Yes.
We need to just make sure we help them so that they can live long and healthy lives, and obviously don't spread it on to anyone else. So this is why it's very important, because when you talked about the children they tend to like each other, and that's how you have numbers increasing in high schools or in the community, because everyone's sleeping with each other.
Right.
So you guys, it is
And that's
really
a whole other
important.
conversation that you really should have, Dr. Renee, about just kind of the kind of this community transmission, because you hit the
Right.
nail on the head too, which is the part. But I also wanted to say we encourage folks. This is not a it's not a elite organization, so please join us and engage us through the Black Leadership AIDS Crisis Coalition, which is blacc.net. And I'll tell you more about what we've got going on. You can follow us on social media under Black Leadership AIDS Crisis Coalition, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We've got lots of activities going on. We've got a strong presence in Chicago, homoblackdoctors.org, in Chicago, in Cleveland and Columbus, Ohio, of course, here in Atlanta and South Florida, in Dallas and Houston, as well as in Los Angeles, California. So, please, stay involved, come get involved. We're doing lots of great stuff. You can learn more too. If you go to freehivtest.net, there's a link that also will get you connected to learn more about AIDS Healthcare Foundation and the myriad of things that we are doing across the globe, just being cutting edge in the approach. And really, at the end of the day, it's about saving lives. And I just want to say that the quote that helps to resonate in my life is by Dr. King, which just simply says, "Our lives begin to end the moment we are silent about things that matter."
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I will add black.net to the post as well, because I know there's a lot of high schoolers that have to get volunteer hours in here's a place that you might be able to get you some
Right.
hours
Yep.
and learn some valuable information. So I will definitely make sure I add that as well to the post. But thank you again for your time. And
Thank you
everyone,
as
I will
always.
see you again next week, Thursdays, of course, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central, 3 o'clock Pacific. And we'll have another wonderful conversation. Bye.